Welcome back to the continuing adventures of Stealth, the Elven Rigger in Shadowrun Dragonfall. Last time we left our hero, we'd just taken care of a little side mission to hopefully get some better wear. It's not really worth it, I don't think. We get an induction jack in our hand and then maybe get some sideware in our head. But I think Stealth is just going to keep at it as is. Now, we've helped out so far Iger. We've helped out Iger with her problems with Winter Night. We've helped out Blitz with his issues, you know, with the Lone Shark, and Dietrich to help out his nephew and make sure he does not wind up in the Humanist Poly Club. So I'm pretty happy about that. Let's check our mission computer before we talk to our last team member, Glory, and find out what's up with her. Let's check for messages. We don't have anything. Old jobs directory. Oh, we forgot to claim payment for the Mark IV prototype. Okay. Or the Mark VI prototype. You submit the job as finished and await your client's response. A few moments later, a message pops onto the screen. Herr Schmidt to Stealth. To call your work unsatisfactory would be an understatement. When I said that we wanted the prototype, it should have gone without saying that we wanted it intact and operational. Hey, you didn't say it. We thought it would be alright. You technically fulfilled the terms of our arrangement, so you will get paid, but don't ever expect to work for us again, Schmidt. Alright. A moment later, a second message pops up into your inbox with payment details. Okay, so we net about, okay, $3,000 isn't too bad. 6,000 for everybody else. 1,500 for resupply, and we sent some money to the Alice Fund. Fantastic. So we have a decent amount of money. We're going to look into drones. We're going to look into guns. And how much karma? We've got 2 karma. We'll work on this. But first, let's talk to Glory. I feel like she has a nutty story. I want to find out more about her. Stealth, what do you need? Hey Glory, how you holding up? Don't worry about me, I'm solid. You sure? You look like you're a million miles away. I'll be with you when it counts. Right now it doesn't. So that's the thing about the Chrome that Glory has. A lot of people who have tons of Chrome installed in their bodies wind up flaying away their essence, essentially their soul, and it kind of takes a turn on their emotions. They become far more robotic, I guess is what you could say. And judging from the gigantic arms on Glory, she's super robotic, and just her disposition. She's got a ton of cyberware in her, and it's affecting her. Alright, I have a question for you, Glory. You know, it's of the personal kind. I'm not big on sharing personal reasons. You understand, I'm sure. Sure I understand, but I still need to talk to you. Glory lets out a weary sigh. Ask your questions, but do it quickly. I have things to do. Okay. You can't start running the shadows much more than 5 years ago. So what's with the vintage Chrome? That is a good question. Like I was saying, if you're going to flay parts of your essence away, you should probably get more up-to-date Chrome that won't flay away as much. So either you can install other cyberware, like if you got the huge cyber arms that Glory has, maybe you could also pick up, you could replace those for smaller ones that are essentially better, and you could also pick up some cyber eyes, and it won't affect your essence as much. But I'm thinking maybe Glory has a reason for those huge cyber arms. Yeah, let's ask her. It was cheap, it gets the job done, she shrugs, and discussion. Okay, that was quick and to the point. I don't think so. I've known a lot of street Sams in my time, but I've never met anyone who'd voluntarily install cyberware that old. Because you could upgrade, you could get more bang for your buck essentially with your body. You're right. There's more to it than I'm laying on, but I'm not interested in talking about. I can't help but notice you seem guarded, withdrawn. That's my problem, and none of your concern. Okay, I'm leery of this outfit. I decide what is and isn't my concern. Now tell me what's going on. That's a little forceful. We're going to go with, if whatever happened to you has impaired your ability to trust me, then it is my concern. Come on, Glory, talk to me. Trust is earned, and I don't know you yet. Maybe later, when we get to know one another better, we can talk. For now, I'd prefer if you dropped it. That's all I wanted to know for now. Okay, let's talk to her later. She shrugs, suits herself. Okay, let's talk. Gloria's expression remains distant, but her lips curl upward into a hint of a smile. Okay, so she's warming up to us. Stealth, need something? Everything's still okay with you? You never need to worry about me, Stealth. I'm fine. Okay. I'd still like to know more about the chrome you're sporting. That's not a story that I'm interested in telling out of context, okay? If you really want to get into it, we're going to need to go back, way back. She stares at you with her cold, dead eyes. I'm not sure that you want to do that. You say that you'll give me answers when we talk about your past, so let's talk about it. I agree with that. Let's talk about it. Why do you care? There's no hostility in her voice. If anything, she sounds suspicious because I'm the leader of this team, and I need to know as much as I can about the runners who are working with me. Okay, I think that works. I don't care, not particularly, but I'm just curious. That's a little, Let's go with the first one. She pauses for a moment considering this, then she nods. Alright, fine. We can talk, but we're doing it on my terms. This is a long story, Stealth. Long, and ugly, and cruel. Are you sure you want to hear this? Please. Alright, I'm going to start at the beginning. Not for you, for me. I guess that it might help me to say all this out loud. She takes a deep breath, then slowly releases it. When she speaks, her voice comes out in a cool monotone. My family lived in Stuttgart. It was a nice enough place, I suppose. My parents worked as wait slaves for IFMU. My mom was a good person. Once upon a time, my father was a decent person as well. That's what Mom always told me, but I never knew him that way. That's not good. She pauses for a long moment. When she begins speaking again, some of the ice has fallen away from her voice. For the first time since you met her, Glory sounds alive. The dad that I knew was an old, damaged Euro War vet who turned to hardline religion to make sense of the world. In Stuttgart, that either meant the Reiter Christi or their fascist cousins. My father chose the later path. That's not good. I still remember hiding in my room when my father had his brothers over for prayer group. They would drink and get rowdy, then spend an hour or two riling themselves up with talk about heretics and the devil's work. So, something kind of important. Actually, no, let's continue. Then they'd go find some poor elf or dwarf, stomp the living shit out of them, and drown him in the Neckar. Meanwhile, I'd be holed up at home with Mom, who would commemorate the event by drinking a bottle of wine and crying herself to sleep. Just elves and dwarves? I'd assume that a mage or an orc would make a more tempting target. So, when the Sixth World came into play, when magic came back into the world, when people were having elf babies and orc babies and troll babies and dwarves, a lot of people who were very religious essentially thought that all of this was going against God. Magic, elves, dwarves, all of this was the work of the devil. A lot of really hardline religious people thought that was the work of the devil. And they would sometimes take it upon themselves to deal with mages and sometimes orcs, trolls, dwarves, and elves as well. And that's just not good. As time passed in Shadowrun, magic became more of an accepted thing, but there are still people who really do have biases against mages. And well, we did the whole thing with the Poly Club, and yeah, those guys still have a huge issue with dwarves, elves, trolls. Even into modern Shadowrun, this is a huge issue as well. Yeah, wait. Okay, let's just keep going. Just elves and dwarves? I'd assume that a mage or an orc would make a more tempting target. What, you mean pick on a victim who could fight back? True, a mage could cast a spell quick, and an orc could probably put up a better fight than a troll. Lori shakes her head. Or a dwarf. No, my father and his pack of jackals weren't up for that kind of trouble. They'd had more than enough of real combat when they were young men back in the Euro Wars. They just wanted to feel big and control their lives again, and it didn't matter to them who they hurt in the process. Anyway, aside from the fact that my dad and his buddies were a bunch of murderous assholes, life was pretty normal. I went to school, made friends, hung out with my mom, kid stuff. Then I turned 14 and everything went to shit. Chloe pauses and swallows hard, ever so slightly. Her cheeks flush red. Suddenly, she looks self-conscious, as if she's just snapped out of a trance. As quickly as it came, the flush of emotion disappears. Her voice frosts over. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I mean, this stuff is clearly helping you to work through it. Yes, it is. Lori stares at you through cold, dead eyes, but I'm not going to be able to get through this in one sitting. You need to understand that. She turns away from you, her movements mechanical. Now let's get back to the job at hand, shall we? Okay, what could possibly have happened to her when she was 14? Okay. I think you were just warming up to me? Oh wait, hold on. For the first time since you met her, Gloria's expression seems to brighten. It's subtle, but it's there. You're sure of it. Stealth. A pleasure, as always. Need anything from me? Aw, she is warming up to us. She studies your face for a moment before responding. I suppose that you might say that. I don't talk to many people, Stealth. It just doesn't seem to be worth the effort. I don't really feel much anymore, not since she caresses the chrome of her forearm with a hand made of articulated steel. Yeah, that'll affect all of your emotions, or at least having chrome that flays your essence like that. If that's true, why are you still talking to me? I suppose because you've shown an interest, and because you haven't let me push you away. She locks eyes with you, her expression is blank. I don't want to mislead you, Stealth. I still don't feel anything. No, not warmth or friendship or even trust. But I can appreciate the effort you're making. It's something new, and it's worthy of exploring. Emotions. You said things went bad when you turned 14. I'd like to keep talking about that. She stares at you, her face expressionless. No, I'd rather not. Why not? Because I don't see a reason to. The memories are unpleasant, and dredging them up doesn't serve any real purpose. Look, you're wrong about that. The last time we talked, it had an impact on you. That reason is enough to continue. She pauses a moment to consider your words. A troubled look on her face. I suppose that's true. Feeling discomfort is better than feeling nothing at all. I don't know about that. Some people would argue about that. Alright, here's the deal, Stealth. I'm going to talk, you listen. When I'm done, I'm done. No complaints and no arguments. And we'll see what happens. Deal? Deal. Okay, right. The thousand-meter stare creeps back into Glory's eyes a moment later. She's locked away in her own head again, reliving memories that she'd long since filed away. So a few years after my 14th birthday, I began to express magically. Wait, you're magically active? I was. Glory gestures at her cyborg-riddled body. Not anymore. There is another long pause, and Glory becomes more animated. Anyway, I turned 14. I awakened. I don't even remember how my parents found out about it anymore. I think that my dad caught me playing with a tiny city spirit that I coaxed out of a pile of garbage, something like that. With everything that happened afterward, those days are kind of a blur. What I do remember is my father's response to the revelation that his little girl was a witch, a hexie. He beat the living shit out of me with his fists, and then his belt, and then a claw hammer that he grabbed out of his toolbox. Dude. All the while, my mother was screaming and flailing at him. She took a couple licks with the hammer, too. Lori, it's a miracle you survived. I'm just lucky, I guess. So, he's super against magic and cyberware Flay's essence. Did he... Let's just continue. So finally, after what felt like an hour, Dad stopped tuning me up with the hammer. I had broken ribs, a busted arm. I couldn't see out of my left eye, and my entire right side was covered with one giant bruise. I was bleeding all over the place, making a real mess of the carpet. The old bastard spat on me. his bleeding, crying daughter. He spat on me and told me that I was des Teufelsher, the devil's whore? Dude. Then he kicked me out of the house. As I was crawling away, my father told me that if he or any of his brothers ever saw me again, they'd treat me as the Berlin chapter treats the enemies of God. Yeah, there were a lot of people who believed that anyone who had any type of magic or was any type of meta-human was an enemy of God. And apparently he, instead of trying to like exorcise his child or anything like that, he just got rid of her after he beat her. If you're not familiar with how they are here in Berlin, with how they deal with heretics, it's decidedly less pretty than what my dad and his buddies did to their victims. I got the hint, and the next morning I hitched a ride out of Stuttgart. You were a human girl, presumably with an ID. Why didn't you go to the hospital? Oh, I did, but not in Stuttgart. If I went to a local hospital with the kind of injuries that my dad gave me, there'd be questions, and I couldn't afford to stay in town any longer than I had to. Because if she did go, there would be questions which would lead to his father, and no one knows, or we don't exactly know how connected his buddies were. If that wound up being a case, she would have not been drowned in the river. She did say that they deal with heretics in a special way. I would assume they go Joan of Arc style, but I'm glad she got out of there. That was probably the best idea, to go to another town and then hit the hospital up. Even if my dad wound up getting arrested for beating me, the rest of the locals would have found me, and I've wound up skinned alive? That's what they do? Dude. I wound up in Tübingen. I figured it'd be safe enough place to find medical attention, and maybe to call home. It's not far from Stuttgart, but it has a huge student community that I figured I could blend into, and the university there has a decent magic department. Okay. My ride dropped me off at the university hospital, and they patched me up pretty good. Had some questions for me about how I got so beat up, but I lied and told them that I'd been mugged, which played nicely to my complete lack of cash, credit, and identification. True. Glory pauses for a moment and looks down at the floor, then fixes her eyes on you. She is visibly tense. We're gonna fast forward through the next few years. I was a kid on the street. I got by as best I could, doing whatever I had to do. The rest we can leave up to your imagination. You did what you had to do. I'm no stranger to that myself. I don't think that anyone working in the shadows is. Of course, I only need to hear what you're comfortable talking about, nothing more. Good. Glory's clenched jaw relaxes somewhat, and the tension drains out of her shoulders, thanks. So anyway, I lived on the street for a few years, got used to being hungry all the time, got used to getting rained on, got by. I was painfully aware that I had magical talents, but without any kind of training or guidance, I didn't really know how to use or develop them. Truth be told, they scared me, so I more or less ignored them. So it just sort of went like that, until a few days after my 17th birthday. Then I met Marta, and everything changed. Marta was a sweet girl. At first, I took her for a street kid like me. Her clothes were a little ratty, and she seemed comfortable being near me. But she also looked really well-fed and happy. And those were two things that I hadn't been in years. We started hanging out, and before I knew what was happening, I was in love. Aww. There was a genuine attraction between Marta and me, I think. But I also think that a lot of my affection for her came from the fact that she was the first person in years to give a damn about me. She cared, and I loved her for that. Glory pauses. She looks flustered, her composure cracked. Keep going, Glory. She stares at you for a beat, then nods. A few ragged breaths later, she continues. Marta told me about a place where she'd been hanging out. She invited me to join her there. It was called The First Place, and it was sort of a commune for dispossessed youth. Okay. It turns out that a lot of the street kids I'd known over the few years had moved there. The way that they had disappeared, I'd assumed that they'd been kidnapped or killed, wow, or had gone back to their parents, but they were. I remember being kind of angry about, like, how did everybody get the memo but me? Marta calmed me down. She was good at helping me work through my feelings, and I wound up following her. To a street kid, it was basically paradise. The owner, a guy named Harrow, had set up this little farm just outside of the city and in the forest. The area is officially a nature park, but not many people go there nowadays. Too much fear of paranormal animals, I guess. Yeah, paranormal animals are scary. You're out for a normal walk, and you get attacked by some dire bear. Anyway, park or not, it has plenty big enough for us to hide in. It was also safe and pretty, and the farm was well stocked with food. Most importantly, it gave us a sense of community and stability that we'd never had on the streets, and we loved Harrow for that. He became like a surrogate father to us. I don't like where this is going. Lori pauses again, and you recognize the distinctive flush in her cheeks. She seems to have come out of her reverie once again. That's enough for now. I need to process all of this, and I don't want to continue forward until I've had a chance to do that. Okay. I know that this all happened years ago, but I guess it's still pretty raw to me. So I'm going to ask you to give me some space for a while. She turns away, and the frost begins to creep back into her voice. We can pick back up later. Okay. I don't like this dude Harrow, because it sounds like a cult to me. Like, it has the hallmarks of a cult. Lori's pallid face lightens up at your approach. A genuine smile spreads across her lips. Hey, she's happy. Stealth, good to see you. You too, Glory. How are things with you? She pauses for a moment, considering. You know what? I'm happy, actually. For the first time in a long time. I have you to thank for that. Aww. Are you ready to tell me more about the chrome you're sporting? Be patient, Stealth. The explanation for that is coming. A look of unease flirts across her face. I'm not sure that you're going to like it, though. You needed time, and I gave you time. Are you ready to talk about it? Yeah. Glory looks troubled. More so than you've ever seen her before. Whatever memories she's dredging up must be exceedingly painful. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't been looking forward to this, but yeah. It's time. Stealth, look. I'm about to tell you some things about myself that might change your opinion of me. It's entirely possible that you're going to hate me based on what's coming up next. I've accepted that. And if that's what happens, I sincerely believe that I deserve it. She looks you in the eye, her expression grim. So tell me, are you sure that you want to keep pushing forward with this? This is important for you. Glory, after everything we've been through, I think that we both know that whatever you have to tell me, I'm ready to listen. Thanks, Stealth. Thanks for being a friend. Thank you for being a friend. So when we left off last time, I had just moved from the streets to the warm, inviting confines of the first place. Marta and I were happy there for a little while, and Harrow embraced me as a long-lost daughter. I should probably take a moment to talk more about Harrow. He's going to be an important figure in the story. I don't know what his age was. He seemed old enough to be parental, but young enough to hang with the kids or something like a peer level. Best guess, I'd say he was in his mid-20s. He was handsome and well-built, with a neatly trimmed beard and thick brown hair, and there was something else about him, something uncanny. Harrow had this charisma, this raw, magnetic attraction that just made people latch on to him. I saw it over and over. All it took was a few words and a pat on the shoulder, and Harrow would have a new convert. The other kids at the farm followed him around like lost puppies. As long as I loved Marta, and as I thought she loved me, we forgot all about one another when Harrow was around. All that we wanted was to be close to him, to be part of his inner circle, and soon enough we were. Ooh. For a girl of 17, it was all terribly exciting. Harrow had these rules of living that we would teach that he would teach us, rules about self-determination and importance of disobedience. The importance of disobedience? He claimed to have taught classes at the University of Berlin, which he painted as a mix between an earthly paradise and an anarchist playground. He told us of how the first place would be the focal point of a new movement for the children of the fatherland. He told us that we were special. We ate it up, of course, we were kids. For those of us in the inner sanctum, Harrow would share even more. He had power, the likes of which I had never seen. Not my father's drunken fists or my own childish experiments, but genuine, incredible power. He said that it came from the Horned God, an ancient deity that he venerated. He knew about my latent abilities right away, and he offered to teach me. Naturally, I accepted. I've heard of the Horned God. His followers have a poor reputation, especially among women. They're hunters. They tend to hunt anything. This Harrow is beginning to sound a lot like a cult leader. You're not wrong there, but it gets a whole lot worse than that, as you'll soon see. Glory sighs. Hang with me, Stealth. Rough waters up ahead. So, I became Harrow's apprentice. He taught me to channel magic and summon spirits. He taught me rituals and pagan traditions and Machiavellian philosophy and Nietzschean ethics. Above all, he taught me to connect with his horned god, and through it, I learned power and arrogance. And it was all downhill from there. For the next few years, I lived at the first place as Harrow's enforcer and right-hand girl. Whoa. Enforcer? I was also his sometimes wife and concubine. Whoa. But that was a distinction that I shared with all of the girls in the commune, including my beloved Marta. So he has a cult and a harem. I came to learn that she'd been his long before she met me. But by that point, I didn't care. I'd embraced the rules of living. I was Harrow's creature through and through. I didn't ask questions, and I walked the path that was in front of me. Other fun facts about those years: I learned cruelty. I had power now, and my new idol encouraged me to use it. Harrow did the same. Any children who didn't pull their weight were subject to my tender mercies, and I was anything but tender. I took what I wanted rather than asking for it. I liked it. It was fun. So she turned, I don't want to say into her father, but yeah. I also came to learn that Harrow's horned god was not the god worshipped by the throwback cults across Germany. It was certainly a god with horns. No, but it came from an altogether different tradition. Care to guess? The devil. In the magically active community, we refer to it as the adversary. But yeah, same being, more or less, the adversary of humanity, the devil. So my idol, the ancient deity that was feeding me my power, was the antithesis of everything that is right and good. And you know what? I didn't care. Whoa. In our time together, Harrow and I committed more atrocities than I could count. At this point, I was onto all of his tricks. I knew the first place was nothing more than a honey trap, carefully designed to lure local children into my master's clutches. I knew that the kids who seemed resistant to Harrow's brainwashing techniques wound up fertilizing the garden. I knew that Harrow's entire manifesto was bullshit. I knew that through it all. Harrow and the adversary were laughing, because I was laughing right there beside them, because she had that power. I don't want to pin the blame for my decisions on anyone but me. That said, I would like to say that my father's connection to that group might have helped play into my willingness to serve the adversary. In my warped, indoctrinated little brain, I equated the church with evil. So the opposite of that, I figured, had to be, well, if not good, then at least not totally bad. But I was kidding myself, of course. My new deity was the very definition of bad. Serving It made me bad. End of story. I can't excuse the choices that you made, but I can understand why you made them. Go ahead and make your excuses. We all make our own choices in life. I disagree with you, Glory. I don't think that any of this was your fault. No. That's big of you, Stealth. I genuinely mean that. Glory takes a moment to steel herself, then continues. This can't get much better. Anyway, one day, Hera invited me on a field trip to Stuttgart. Over the years that I was in the first place, the commune had easily doubled in size. It was thriving, all thanks to the efforts of Marta and the girls like her. Hera would send the girls out to neighboring cities to lure in street kids that nobody would miss. He targeted children because they were easy to indoctrinate, and because nothing makes the adversary happier than the corruption of the innocent. Lovely. As we drove out to pick up the new recruits, I was already planning ahead. It was a foregone conclusion that I would pay my father a visit. The irony of the group getting immolated by a genuine servant of the actual devil tickled me to no end. So when Harrow stopped to fill up on diesel, I hopped out of the van and headed out on foot to my parents' place. Harrow wasn't overly concerned about my absence. I had long since reached the point where I could assert my autonomy, and he knew that I'd be back. I wound up at my folks' house sometime around noon. I would hear the adversary whispering in my ear, telling me what to do. I'd long since learned to listen to its voice. It always rewarded me with extra power when I did its bidding. It told me to knock, so I did. As the door opened, I could feel a torrent of flames welling up in the astral plane all around me. It told me to channel them into the doorway, into my father, so I did. But, of course, the person who opened the door wasn't my father. It was my mother. As I watched her flesh blacken and melt, as I heard her scream, and I broke into hysterics, I heard the adversary laugh. And at that moment, I realized that it was laughing at me. Sorry, Glory. Tragic but predictable? Yeah, Stealth would do that. Glory nods, a grim expression on her delicate face. In hindsight, yes, you're right. It was inevitable that this would happen. I was a fool and a puppet, and any power that I thought that I'd had was on loan from a being that craved my own misery. It was like a lever had been pulled. All at once, the bubble popped. I wasn't a powerful servant of the adversary. I was not Harrow's #1 girl. I was a ridiculous little fool who'd willingly tied her soul to the worst thing in existence. Well, outside horrors. Realizing all of this was one thing, actually fixing it was something else entirely. I knew that I had to get away from Harrow. That was the first thing to do. So I bit my lip and did my best to ignore the happy bauble of the new recruits on the trip back to the first place. And I managed to get through the ride without screaming. Good on you. Once we were back at the commune, I broke into Harrow's safe, stole all of the commune's resources, and ran. I don't know when Harrow realized what I'd done, or whether he even cared. All I know is that nobody came after me, so I kept running and running until I got to Berlin. Getting past the wall was fairly simple. You know how easy it is to obtain falsified papers. The biggest obstacle that I faced during my flight was the adversary itself. I could run from Harrow, but how do you run from something that's tied to your own soul? Let me guess. Snip, snip. The haunted look in Glory's eyes is heartbreaking. She gives you another curt, grim nod. So in order to cut herself from the adversary, she tied her soul to the devil himself. So in order to get away from him, she cut off both of her arms, had ridiculous cyborg installed to flay her soul to remove the devil's influence on her. I walked into the office of the first street dog I could find, pointed at all the biggest, bulkiest pieces of cyborg that he had on display, and told him to put them in me. He tried to upsell me on better merchandise, arguing that what I was asking for was old and inefficient, better studied to be installed in a museum than a body. He told me that I'd be shredding my essence, and that once it was gone, I'd never be able to get it back. I stuck to my guns. After all, shredding my essence was the whole point. Glory looks up at you. Her eyes are sunken and hollow, and the aura of loss about her is palpable. She looks like a woman who has been through hell, quite literally. That's all for now, Stealth. You've heard the tale. You know why I am the way I am. You know the things I've done, and how much I have to atone for. If you still want my company, fine. If I've lost your friendship, I understand that too. But for now, I need to be alone. Let's give her a second, and let's talk to her one more time. Glory favors you with a weak smile, her expression cautious. You're suddenly aware of how very small she is. Hoy, Stealth. I've got to admit, I've been dreading this. You've been dreading what? So now that you know what I've done, what I am, are you here to tell me off? I wouldn't blame you if you were. No, Glory. I'm not here to tell you off. Truth be told, I wanted to check in and see how you were doing. Not great, struggling. About how you'd expect. We left off at the bad place last time. I've been thinking about your story, and I have a question for you. Yeah, what's that? You've escaped from Harrow, but he's still out there. If you're looking to atone for your past, don't you think that shutting him down would be a good place to start? Are you still looking for closure? Because your story had a lot of loose ends that need to be tied up. She holds her silence for a long time. Finally, she nods. Yes, I've been thinking about this for a long time, Stealth. And every time that I've gotten close to making up the decision, I've turned and run away again. No more running. I'm ready to face this thing. But I can't do it alone. I'm gonna need your help. I'm glad we're on the same page. Alright, if we're going to do this, we need to be clear on what our goal is. There are a lot of innocent people in the place. Lost street kids who got suckered in by Marta and the other girls like her. Saving them won't be easy, but it feels like the right thing to do. But then there's also Harrow to consider. I want that man dead. Lord knows he deserves it. And if we don't make killing him our top priority, he might get away from us. If that happens, if he runs, he'll eventually start up another cult somewhere where we can't find him. And all of this will have been for nothing. We're likely running into other complications as well, so I think we need to make a decision here up front. What would you do in my place? Rescue the kids or take down Harrow? I don't think we can manage both. Freeing the kids should be our top priority. We raid the first place, round up the runaways, and clear Harrow's influence from their minds. Killing him will be secondary. Wipe the cold out, start with Harrow? No, let's get the kids. I hate giving Harrow the chance to escape, but you're right. Saving the kids is what's important. She pauses, considering her choices, and a smile flits across her lips. This feels like the path to redemption. This feels right. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear that. We're in agreement. When you're ready to go, meet me at the van. It's a long drive from here. She nods. Right, I'll get my things. Oh, and Stealth. Thanks for everything. Alright, people. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for listening. We are going to go to the first place, a cult compound where a servant of the adversary, Harrow, is located. We're going to, of course, stock up before we head there on the next episode. Please tune in to the continuing adventures of Stealth, where Glory hopefully can tie up the loose ends of her past. Please be excellent to each other. Have a nice day, and peace.